We're recording.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Zanotti and this is Life Edge. I'm joined today by my good friend and co-host, Dr. Susan Nash. Susan, how are you today?
Well, feeling tech challenged, but but I think it's because I've been experimenting with too many apps.
No, and we ran into some Zoom issues and I had capture card problems, you had some problem. It's Friday. Everybody's going on vacation in our hardware. So uh, it's one of those days. But
I'm just saying, I'm just glad that, when tech issues happen, if it's important, I usually have at least three contingency plans. And yesterday and the day before, I was recording and hosting a webinar that I put it in Zoom meetings because if people need to go in and out, it's easier than the webinar mode. But it featured six speakers, and they were three of them or four of them were in Libya, and two were in England, and one was in like Hungary or something. Then a couple in the U.S. That's more than six speakers, but we had a lot of people in and out, and they had some serious connectivity issues in Libya. But finally, it worked out pretty well. I showed the presentation, and then we um, had the just the on voice only, and that worked out. And I had told them earlier, I said, "Hey, why don't we pre-record everything?" Of course, it would have been maybe challenging to get the video over video transfer, but it could have been done. But then I thought, it was so much better, even with problems with connectivity and breaking in and out, and oh, sorry, log back in, do this. Well, in the meantime, so and so speak. Um, at least it was a live and authentic experience.
yes.
And that's why I'm thinking about AI and some of the stuff I mean, what do you think about authenticity versus AI and like so perfect?
Well, I don't think AI is perfect. As we're
Yeah.
finding out, there's a lot of issues with AI. It's not perfect at all. In fact, right now, the lawsuits are flying everywhere. If you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, I don't know how many lawsuits are going against them, and some of them are very large, multi-billion dollar lawsuits. Uh, in fact, I think Elon Musk is having a big lawsuit with them. It's kind of crazy. So the AI world is
You
out
mean,
there.
is Elon Musk having problems because is it from Grok?
I'm not sure, or it's something to do with OpenAI capturing information they shouldn't have. But the end result is there are problems in the AI world. Remember, it's artificial intelligence, which could also be artificial idiocy. So anything can happen. And I think it is happening. In the meantime, you've got many companies trying to create human sounding conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting world in and of itself. I've been involved in some of that as far as doing voiceover work for it and doing conversations. Can't say too much because it's under NDA, but there are many companies doing that. And uh, the conversation's very interesting. I don't know how they'll eventually sound natural because they're so diverse in their content. So it'll be interesting. Where we are in AI today is growing in leaps and bounds daily, but we're nowhere near where we could be. And there are a lot of issues with real data versus made up data. Um, ChatGPT, for example, makes up a lot of data. If they can't figure it out, they just make it up. Why not? Sure. That's a little scary. And there have been lawsuits because of that. Not to
Well,
mention, they've gotten hit for scouring the internet on data they shouldn't be scouring.
Right, right. Well, two things about that. So I recently created a little political ad spot for my son who's running for county commissioner
Hmm.
in Cleveland County. And so he had gave me his walking card that has positions because he was feeling overwhelmed. He wanted to get meet more people. So I said, well, why don't I just create a 30-second spot, or I was thinking 15-second spot that to put up and use for YouTube for ads. And so they have all these different guidelines where you have to get qualified to do it, but they want to know who's paying for it. It has to be transparent, all that, all these political
Hmm.
campaign restrictions, which is fine. But I used Veed, VEED,
Hmm.
to create it. So I just created a little script. Actually, I typed in a lot of things, phrases from his campaign, and then asked Gemini to create a script for it. And then I put it into Veed, and it created it. It had nice voice. It had images that came in. That it selected the images. I couldn't put input any, which I kind of found distressing. And
Hmm.
then it also had, and then it put overlay with like the kind of like captioning, but not really. It just had like impact words. The only thing that I thought was there were two things I thought were really inauthentic. One, even though it said Cleveland County District 3, Oklahoma, the pictures and the images were not of Oklahoma. And and then one of the words is from Potawatomi. It's a Potawatomi tribe. They pronounced it Potawatomi. And I
Oh,
thought,
Tommy.
oh man. So I showed it to him, I sent it to him, and I actually was able to upload it to my own, well, to a YouTube channel
Hmm.
and let him see it. And he said that he didn't want to use it because a lot of the people in his district are really against the data centers.
Oh, and that is a problem nowadays.
Because our electricity rates are going up
Hmm.
and then it's diverting water and there's just a lot of controversy and a lot of extreme feelings. He said he doesn't a lot of his it's a hot button issue for a lot of his constituency.
That's so interesting. I know up in Idaho, where we are right now, they've put in some pretty severe laws that they cannot mess with the water. They have to leave it, it'll cool the servers, but you have to put the water right back to where it was. So they're saying, yeah, we'll let you come in, but it has to be under our environmental controls and to make sure that you don't cause any pollution or anything else. Don't mess with the wildlife, the fishes, or anything else. So I think that's going to be happening around the country, at least in some states. Other states don't care, they're insane. So it'll be okay. But definitely in some states, they're going to be blocking that. And I know Idaho is saying, no, you can have your data centers, but they have to go under our guidelines. And so
Hmm.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. California could care less. They'll just make up some rules and then they'll do whatever they feel like. Um, it's just kind of the way it is. But
Well,
do you,
they're also, yeah, and there are also a lot of issues with taking electricity out of the grid. So have all of these different behind the meter options. So a lot of people are looking for stranded natural gas, and
mm,
then they're saying, okay, let's have a gas gathering system. We'll put in the turbines, we'll make it modular, and we'll just have these modular units moving all over wherever we have energy.
mm,
We'll hook up the servers, but they aren't like huge data farms. They're smaller.
right, right. So yeah, that's going to be one of the biggest problems facing AI in the near future is energy, cool servers, because if you go into an AI server farm, they're hot. They run very, very hot. and it can be noisy, though, now they tend to be using SD cards for everything, and well, not SD cards, but the SSDs, solid state drives. They're but they still run hot, pretty
Oh
hot.
yeah. Well, you know that even back in the day, in your server room, you
Mm,
had to have for all the on-prem stuff, lots of cooling had to go
that's
on.
right. Yeah, I went into one of the Hitachi data centers before it was Hitachi. It was called a company called Blue Arc,
Mm,
and they had at least a couple hundred servers, maybe more, all rack mounted. Actually, probably even more. I think there were 200 racks, plus at least 6 or 8 servers per rack. And you would walk in, it was like, whoa. And you're just kind of looking around, going, oh man. And it was hot in there. It was hot. And they barely had enough electricity to run everything. And San Jose didn't want to give them any more.
mm.
Uh, so you can reach those limits. And the heat unfortunately caused downtime and all sorts of other issues. And this is
Data
before,
integrity issues. And this is when they used tape. It had tape backups, right?
yeah, and this is before AI, where they had big server farms. These were very large server farms for data and for
Hmm.
websites and things like that. It was huge. It was a nice data center, but it could barely keep up with the demands. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, even in the old mainframes took a lot of
Hmm.
energy and were hot.
Well, and if you look at the supercomputers, they all are pretty much water cooled, huge
Mm,
pools of water inside the server rooms to cool off because they run so many processes, and they run fast and hard. Uh,
yeah.
it's not just like having a lot of, well, if you have a lot of PCs in an office, you're going to hear the same kind of noise and heat. You imagine that by, tenfold, 1,000-fold. That's a lot of noise, and it's a lot
Oh,
of heat.
yeah. So it makes you
And
wonder. I mean, they say that when your brain is working, it's is basically using um, glucose, and
oh
so
yeah, and
essentially we do the same thing. We run hot when we're
we
thinking.
we run hot, and what is it, 75, 80% of the oxygen we breathe in goes to the brain.
Isn't that
It's
interesting?
it's to the brain, because without it, we just burn up. And it is actually really amazing what our brains can do, and how even with all the tech we have, we still can't quite emulate it 100%. The
Well,
way.
and the other thing too is like I mean I've been listening to a lot of podcasts where they're using text to speech,
Mm,
and they vary there a lot of them are okay, and I think we talked earlier, Kindle is really amazing. Kindle has very, very good
yeah.
text to speech. The and there were like 150 options of voices and things.
Hmm.
But even with those, as human beings, we are so attuned to identities with voices and individual difference, and 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 we've had to. It's a survival thing. That it becomes very boring to hear the same type of voices all the time.
And after a while, it becomes almost a game of trying to identify what they said wrong.
Oh, that's true. And then that happens
And they mess
often.
up words a lot.
Well, especially between like lead and lead
Oh,
and
that's one all the time. All the time. Lead and lead. And you think they could, and by the way, they can fix it. You
hmm.
can change what it's saying, but people are so lazy when they create these. And some of these are big companies, they don't bother. Nobody QAs
Well,
it.
somebody needs to proof it,
Yeah, nobody
proof
proofs, nobody
listen,
QAs.
proof listen. Yeah, and so like when I was doing stuff for LibriVox, there's always a different proof listener, but I would listen to my own. I'd start falling asleep listening to myself. But like, but I was thinking about voices. So I was in Houston at Aspen Tech Optimize 2026, and Aspen Tech has so many different AI tools, and they do all sorts of process automation, and they're in engineering and well, anyway, it was subsurface. So this was more like energy, but I was talking and somebody comes over and some guy comes up, oh, it's Dr. Susan Smith Nash. I go, what? Huh? Nobody knows me as that. If anything, they call me maybe Dr. Nash, but or Susan. But and I was like, huh? What? And it was a student I had when I was teaching intersession classes back in the late 90s, early
Oh,
2000s.
wow.
And I go, oh my gosh. I mean, he graduated in like 2000.
Hmm.
And I go, oh, wow. And you know what? I said, I'm amazed you recognized me. He said, I recognized your voice. And
Interesting.
so my voice after 25 years? And then he goes, yeah, my fraternity brothers and I, we always used to take your classes. I took three of your classes. Well, I know it why, because they were fun. They would do things like it's tough to be a tough guy, and that would be like
Yeah.
identity in film
Hmm.
there was film and literature. And you know what? Those would be totally disallowed today. You cannot teach those topics anymore. But I would have a lot of football players and basketball players, and because they were fun and well easy. So
That's funny. Well, you and I have been podcasting for about 15 years,
yes,
and your voice hasn't changed. So I could see, yeah, you probably would be recognized because you have a different voice. It's unique,
I don't
and
think of my voice as being that unique. That's the interesting thing.
but that's because you're used to it.
That's true. Yeah.
Um, and you have a very youthful voice, and as a result, I mean, in the 15 years we've been working together, I would recognize your voice almost anywhere. I've heard a lot of your podcasts and your presentations, and you're very consistent.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah,
Well, but I was thinking how much life has changed. So, in 20, so I used to teach things like dangerous women and their consequences. That was a very
Hmm.
popular one. And it was femme fatale types of people
The
and film
Matahari,
noir.
yeah,
Yes, film noir. Yeah, Barbara Stanwyck types, Double
yeah.
Indemnity, killer women. And then
Hmm.
I had It's Tough to Be a Tough Guy, and then Madness in film and literature. And it was like,
Hmm.
they were so much fun. But today, I mean, I had to go through all of my content and take out illegal DEI terms. So you
Uh,
can't say anything like anything that has to do with specificity or human relations issues. So I don't even know that's like what are we talking about in higher education?
Not much. It's just a shame. Political correctness has always been an issue, and I think we've taken it to the umpteenth level already, and I don't think anybody benefits from it.
Well, they were stripping away the political correctness. So anything that had to do with, oh, women are dangerous or men are tough or
Right,
anything, we have to take all of that out. And I get it. Like you said, political correctness and the correction is the other extreme.
right, right. So it's just kind of insane. So the only thing that really suffers is communication
And I think AI training. So
and
getting
AI
back to AI
training.
training, if you're trying to train your AI, but yet you can't be human in what you're talking about because everything's prohibitive
Well,
and
I know
prohibited.
I've done some of the training, and sometimes I'll get an attaboy. That was very well. That conversation sounded almost human. And I'm like, it was human. So you just kind of shake your head sometimes. But it's a new world. Maybe it's an old world because I talked to some people recently, and they were saying, "Isn't AI incredible what we're doing now?" I said, "You do realize AI is not brand new?" And they looked at me like, "Huh?" I go, "I took
Oh,
my first
exactly.
AI programming courses back in the very early 80s, like 81,
Neural
80,
networks. Yeah.
82, and they're going, huh? They had AI back then? Yeah. In fact, the AI languages, Forth, Lisp, those were the two big ones.
Well, and they called it artificial intelligence, and
Mhm.
they talked about and they'd have all these different brain diagrams,
Right.
and so in neural networks,
Hmm.
but it's basically pattern recognition.
That's all it is. That's what our brains do.
And then
We,
if you want to build in a bit of randomness, you do um, random walk and
mhm.
uh, all these different um, Bayesian stuff.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about artificial intelligence is it's not that hard to really kind of imitate humans. And they've been dumbing down humans for so long that it makes it easier for artificial intelligence to look smarter.
Yeah,
It sounds almost sadly funny, but it's true. Um, a lot of people think it's incredible what's going on, and it is, and yet it isn't. There's a lot of linguistics that goes into it. There's a lot of pattern recognition, a lot of um, uh, just mathematical theories that go into it. And if you look at music theory and language theory, that's all part of AI in the way we look at things, listen to things, the way we retrieve information in our brains. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, not much more than that.
exactly. Okay, so Thomas Bayes, mathematician, um, I guess he was a reverend in the Church of England, whatever. He was born in 1702, and we talk about all this Bayesian, using it for in algorithms to
Mhm.
add uncertainty and predictive stuff. So I'm reading from the AI overview of Bayesian. Bayes' theorem is a fundamental formula in probability theory that calculates the probability of an event based on prior knowledge of conditions related to that event. I mean, that's so cool so like determining the likelihood, and they use that in like geosteering for drilling and automated automation.
Actuarial work,
Oh
they
yeah.
mhm. It's used scientifically, it's used in business a lot, and you know, actually, if you remember back in the good old algebra days, set theory, there's a lot
Hmm.
of set theory that's used in AI in retrieving very large amounts of information. Um, you know, my wife used to work at a company called Teradata. Teradata was the very first company that came out with a Teradata machine. This was back in the um, early 90s. Let's see, I'm sorry, mid to late 80s. I'd say it started about 85, I think, 86, and they created their first Teradata machine. It took up something like 5,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet in one. And it was a combination of many, many different drives and machines. And it was one big for 1 terabyte. Keep in mind now, a terabyte just fits right
So
between your
so it was
fingers.
Teradata, Tera, not Terra.
Right, Tera.
Teradata.
Yep.
Cool.
And then they got
Teradata.
acquired by, I think they're owned by NCR right now,
Mm.
AT&T NCR.
National
It's
Cash Register.
National Cash Register, which I think they have a different name now,
Yeah.
um, but they were the very first ones to do Teradata or terabyte searches, and they could search billions of records in a second, but it took a very, very long time to bring one record back because of the set theory they used.
Oh, wow. Well, I know that one of the big issues right now, one of the big breakthroughs is in
You say,
so-called rapid ingestion,
yeah.
where it's all patterns, but it's basically it's almost like shorthand. It's an abbreviation system so that
Mhm.
that is there will be like a code that corresponds to a huge amount of code or like
Yeah.
so it's just abbreviations. And I
Yeah.
think that that's dangerous because it can introduce a lot of error.
It can, but that's when the Bayesian stuff comes in because you know what the probability of that error will be.
I just think it's so cool that Thomas Bayes was just basically writing right after Newton. I mean, all
Yeah,
those mathematical and theoretical breakthroughs that happened with calculus and then with Bayesian and probability and statistics, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we can do with all that.
and if you look at Newtonian physics, it's been so in some ways it's been proven, but in other ways it seems almost primitive compared to what we're doing with quantum physics now and other things. It's pretty interesting.
Well, and I mean, and have we actually done everything we can do with Newtonian physics, given that we can do so many permutations and iterations and things with our computational power?
Right. And if you look at like chip design for semiconductor chips, they kept thinking we're not going to make them much smaller than what or bigger in terms of more capacity. It just can't do it. We've reached a limit. And next thing you know, they broke the limit again. And it's amazing what they're doing. Apple's been doing a lot of work with that on working with companies in the old days like Intel and others, uh, Qualcomm. It's just amazing what they're getting out of these chips. And now, if you look at computers, especially personal computers, Apple's doing a pretty good job of really, really fast computers that aren't generating very much, if at all, heat.
Well, I just think what all this ability to do things is like I always like to sketch, I've liked to draw, I've liked to write things. And I've also spent a lot of time analyzing and studying film. And then even when I was in high school, I did like filmmaking. But I always would get like a little frustrated because of the limitations of of my equipment and also the enormous amount of time in editing. Well, I've been having fun lately doing kind of writing a script where I'm adopting Twelfth Night. I guess talked about last night, the
Mhm.
Shakespearean Twelfth Night, but setting it in the ATF office in Tulsa and having agents there and also a geologist who's in the ATF office is also where the APG's office is. They rent out to the ATF. And so I have these characters, but I'm changing them so that they are werewolf shifters. And there's all kinds of identity issues and things like that. And in Twelfth Night there's a shipwreck and identical twins, end up like pretending to be the other gender, etc. So I'm doing this with like the werewolves and I'm having fun with it, and I thought I want to like either record this or explore with putting the text to speech using something like 11 Labs, or if I do it in
Mhm.
Kindle, but I don't want to do Kindle because then you're just with the book. Because what I've also been doing is playing with Midjourney and creating images so that I could have at least a kind of cinematic podcast. Even though
Yeah.
there's still pictures, I'm not doing the whole video, but just at least having some um, illustrated podcast.
Yeah, and if you look at what where we've come in just the last 2 years of content and how content you can easily acquire content to create your own videos, graphics, whatever else. So generative AI is very popular.
Well, just like the Veed thing. I mean,
Yeah,
just except what I wanted to do is by creating my own images using large language and generating the images, and they remember what the characters look like, so they build on them. So there's continuity in the scenes. I have I can be more creative and actually have more creative input.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, I think we still have a lot more we could talk about, but we don't want to talk for too long because we don't want to bore you. There's a lot of stuff that we are going to be discussing in the near future about AI and where it's going and how it's going to get there. We can there's
Exactly.
yeah, because there's some things that it may succeed beyond your wildest dreams, and it may not. It may
Right.
not. It's still an enormous amount of money to do AI correctly.
Yes.
And the rewards aren't that high. They're not making that much money on, the 10 or $20 subscriptions per month. That you need a lots of billions of people to pay for that. And right now, with the economies worldwide the way they are, it's not going to happen.
No, and then I noticed that Amazon is trying to encourage people to do AI generated text, bundle them up in Kindle and sell them. And I'm thinking, well, I get it. They make the money, but
Yes.
the author, the creator, is going to have a very hard time
Yeah.
selling anything.
Yeah, that's happening as it is already. People think if you write a book, you'll make billions. No. I mean, if you might make millions, and there are authors who do really, really, really well, but you're not going to do it on one book. Usually, you have to write a lot of books, and we're more and more in a society that doesn't read a heck of a lot, at least in the U.S. Um, so it'll be interesting to see where all of that winds up going. We still don't have a change in reading with younger people versus older people versus whatever. So we'll see. That's just reading. We do have a lot of videos, but if you go to YouTube right now, I mean it's the world's second largest search engine, but it also produces probably even more junk than Google on
Oh, and
searches.
in fact, a lot of channels are being demonetized for
Yeah, junk.
low effort. In
Yeah,
other words, AI generated.
low effort and fake stories,
Oh
fake
my gosh, so
articles.
true.
I believed a couple of them and they were totally made up. If you find anything on Clint Eastwood, Bruce Lee, you can almost name anybody, Johnny Carson. There are so many fake stories about them.
Mm.
And if you remember, like the Bruce Lee ones, they go, he was the most incredible fighter in the whole world. But it's all made up. These stories never happened.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
and I know because I was around in those days, and I know people who practiced with Bruce Lee, and I
Oh,
know,
well, they would have these things like the tragic secrets of such and such
yeah,
celebrity.
yeah,
And
and
they're like, and what they say, as it turns out, there weren't even that many, there weren't any secrets and they weren't tragic, but there could have been, or people think there were.
well, I was watching some YouTube last night, going, figures. Somebody was writing about, well, we have the hantavirus, right? Does anybody remember how Gene Hackman's wife died? She died of hantavirus.
Yes.
So now they're trying to track hantavirus to Gene. I was going, oh gosh, not even close. I mean, first of all, this one version of it probably came from a European ship. They don't think it really came from Ushuaia, Argentina. Probably doubtful,
No,
especially
it must have come from the ship because the ship is from
yeah,
Europe. And the thing that's so silly about it is like, okay, what did Gene Hackman have? Secret lab in his basement and he was cooking up viruses while he had dementia?
right, right. And she got it somehow, supposedly. Very strange. And with this hantavirus that was found on ship, if it did come from Argentina, that was during winter. Rats don't really come around that much during winter, and they usually don't go on cruise ships
Well,
during
and
winter.
also they were talking about this big dump, and there are all these dumps and rats and all this stuff, and then and that's where the seagulls or the bird watchers or whatever. I mean, that's really tragic. But
Yeah.
why didn't they get bird flu?
Exactly. Exactly. And even some of the people from uh, other places, who track these kind of diseases said, yeah, if you look at history, we've had like 30 outbreaks of it or 30 cases of it in the last 20 years or whatever. It's almost nothing. But the news got a hold of it. Now it's a major issue. And and I'm waiting for some people. People are already starting to scream, we need masks. We need masks. Uh-huh. Please help us.
Well, you know what? It made me feel less mean about having um, putting poison in my house for the mice.
uh, yeah. I mean, mice do have what
They're very bad.
supposedly, yeah, bubonic
They're very
plague is
bad. You
still
don't.
around somewhere.
Yeah,
Mm.
but you don't want to have a bunch of, rat urine or
No,
mouse urine and
it's not
droppings. It's
clean.
really bad, really bad. And if you inhale it, it's really bad. So you're never supposed to sweep up, use a vacuum with mouse droppings. You're supposed to get a wet towel or
Yeah.
clean, not a paper towel and clean it, put on gloves and clean it that way. Never aerosolize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then that's when you can start breathing it in. Not good. Not good. But
Yeah,
there's so many other things that can kill us. Why focus on a poor little rat? Jeez.
I know. I
I
mean,
don't know.
you're more likely to be run over by an electric scooter.
Nowadays, yeah, that's true. Anyway, well, thank you guys for
Thank you.
watching the show. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.